Welcome back, Period 2 MUN and Miss Ford. On today's show, we will be taking a look at what's going on in France today. From country news to European Union news, from business updates to sports and the weather, we'll be sure to keep you up to date on what's happening in this country. First, let's take a look on the Yellow Vest movement that's largely impacted France recently. These protests began on November 17, 2018, because of a 20% increase in fuel costs in the past year. This is an average about 1.49 euros per liter. The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, later announced that taxes would be raised on fuel to fight against climate change and to protect the environment. In response to these announcements, Yellow Vest protesters fight to reverse the taxes that many believe favor the rich population and call on the president to resign through protesting in the roadways. The protesters are usually workers with lower middle incomes, barely making ends meet and receiving limited public services. These people also get a handful of the highest tax bills, not just in France, but all of Europe. The movement started with 300,000 people in the streets, blocking many highways. About a week later, 106,000 began to call attention to the issues they didn't agree with. Protests grew worse and more violent and resulted in 380 people held in custody after the events occurring on December 3, 2018, and about 3 million euros worth of city damage. The government has responded to these protests by announcing those responsible for the damage will be found and punished. In addition, Macron, who once seemed unmovable in the topic of the increase in gas tax, may have to be more flexible. He is facing the biggest crisis in his presidency so far, and activists have called on him to step out of office. Next up on our show is Sydney Shuba, here to present what's new in France and the European Union.
Hello, my name is Sydney Shuba, giving you the EU news. The French ambassador has been pulled out of Rome by the French government because of the things that Italy has said about the French president. Italy has been participating in verbal attacks against the French president, urging French voters not to back up the Inch Marchi party in the European Parliament ballot. Italy's Louis Moy and Matteo Salvini, two appointed prime ministers, have accused France of impoverishing Africa 2 weeks ago, as well as further escalating the migration crisis. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has ignored the statements made by Italy, such as Matteo Salvini calling Macron a terrible French president. If comments are continuously made, the relationship between these two countries will never be fixed and can further escalate. Another issue facing France would have to be the reformation of the European Union artistic rules. France and Germany both have different views on what they want to change, but they both want to reform. France would like a broader definition of relevant markets. Also, France wants the European Union to be able to override communist decisions. This will go along with the side of increasing careful foreign investments to shield Europeans' key industrial assets. Lastly, France's second largest sugar group, Crystal Union, says there will be major changes in the European Union sugar sector, as prices will go up since 2017. The European Union abolished exports and production quotas. That is all the latest news regarding France and the European Union. Back to the host in the studio.
Thanks for the update, Sydney. Next up, we have Thomas Rawlings here with NATO news and business updates. Let's take a look.
Hello, this is Thomas Rawlings. I'll be covering for Ian Gorel. I'll be covering news regarding France's economy. Euronext, the leading stock exchange for the Eurozone, recently declared that it has performed well in 2018, as well as that it achieved many of its goals it had planned for 2019 a year in advance. They achieved double-digit growth in revenue and expect to have a, quote, low single-digit growth, unquote, of operating costs, according to Stéphane Boujna, the Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Managing Board of Euronext. However, in January 2019, the average daily transaction value in the Euronext cash order book was 6.7 billion euros, which was 16% less than it was in January 2018, according to Euronext and Global Newswire. Likewise, the overall average daily volume on derivatives in January 2019 dropped to 523,542 contracts, a 6.7% drop compared to last year's January. The Yellow Vest protests still continue in France, although their numbers are starting to dwindle. A recent protest consisted of around 51,000 people, a mere fraction of what the size of the first protest was in mid-November. The protesters have called for higher wages and lower taxes, which could have a major impact on France's economy. Lastly, France is at a decade-long low in unemployment rates. As of January 2019, the unemployment rate is 8.8%, the lowest France has seen since the first quarter of 2009. This compares to the fourth quarter of 2018, which was 9.1%. That is all. Thank you. Good day, this is Thomas Rawlings, reporting on French involvement in NATO, otherwise known as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Last month, on January 1st, 2019, Germany took over the Very High Readiness Joint Task Force, or VGTF, from Italy, who led it in 2018. The VGTF is used to deploy a large number of troops very quickly to respond to any threats from Russia, Africa, and the Middle East. While Germany is the main supplier of troops, a number of countries complement the German forces. Of these countries, France is one of them. Other supporting countries are the Netherlands, Norway, Belgium, the Czech Republic, Latvia, and Lithuania. Overall, this force numbers around 8,000 troops. In more recent news, NATO met in their headquarters in Brussels, Belgium on February 6, 2019. This meeting was officially called to rename Macedonia the Republic of North Macedonia. Among these countries that signed the accession protocol, France was one of them. On top of this name change, the Republic of North Macedonia has been formally invited to join NATO and is currently in the process of doing so. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. Next up, we have Brandon Kim here with us with sports updates. Let's see what's going on.
Hello athletes. As the rank continues to fall, the majority of outdoor sports are being restricted. One indoor sport thriving in France is judo. As the fourth most popular sport in France, this sport gains a lot of attention during the winter season. On February 9th, many judo athletes came out to show their skills at the Accor Hotel's arena. We are now here with one of the many athletes that participated in the Grand Slam. Hey George!
Hey Brandon, thanks for
George
having me.
placed very high in the Grand Slam but couldn't pull this one off in the last match. Could you explain what happened out there?
Yes. Well, I understand I couldn't win, but I'm still very happy about how I performed.
Well, we're talking judokas from all over the world.
yes,
that you
they're all the
competed
world's
with.
greatest, and they really did show that, and they came out to perform that day.
George, did you think you had an opportunity to win that last match?
For sure. I had one of the best rounds in the beginning, continuing to pin him down. But you see, in the last round, I was pinned, and I couldn't escape, which was vital. You know, maybe if I'd slipped, the trophy would be mine right now.
Maybe, George. Well, we're excited to see you compete again next year. Bye, George. Judo has proven to be one of France's favorite sports. The most popular sport, however, is soccer. With approximately 2 million players, the competition is almost unsurpassed. The France team has won their first qualification round on the 22nd of March, and France is excited. As the top second ranked team nationally, many roam the country repping jerseys of their favorite players with Kylian Mbappe and Paul Pogba. Many do not know that many sports have actually originated in France. The sport of tennis came from a French medieval game called Le Jeu. Speaking of origination, the sport of La Pentecue is also made in France. The championship had been won by France 35 times of the last 50 years it has existed. The game is a mix of marbles and curling, a multiplayer game which attempts to either get the ball closer to the circle or knock their opponent's balls out. This sport only contains a bag of balls and a circle drawn in the sand. If you ever visit, this may be something you want to try out. Being an outdoor sport, weather impacts the way the game is played. Let's check in with Caroline Sanders to get the weather report.
Good morning, this is Caroline Sanders, back to give you the recent weather news on France. France has seen a constant weather pattern over the past decades depending on the seasons and the location. The weather for France has almost always been cool winters and mildly warm summers for every other season, with the exception of the hot summers and mild winters near the coast of the Mediterranean. The people in the Mediterranean enjoy these seasons because of the nice weather they have. With spring rounding the corner, the weather report suggests it will be mild temperatures ranging from about 65 degrees to 71 degrees. It is said to be sunny with some clouds and high humidity these next few weeks throughout most of France. Even with France's moderate weather, the north and central regions will receive a lot of rain and sea fog, averaging 200 days of rain per year. Even though this may seem like a lot, France has become very accustomed to it. Thank you, and back to the host.
That's all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning in with us, everybody. We'll see you next time.